And then the last AFC South game, Jacksonville Jaguars, 26. Carolina Panthers, 0. Jags also moved to 9-7. They've got the tiebreakers, so they control their own destiny as far as winning the South. If they win next week against the Tennessee Titans, Jags will win the AFC South and took care of business against the Panthers here in the battle of 1995 expansion teams. And I didn't mention it on the preview show, but as I thought about it, I don't know why these teams didn't wear their 95 throwbacks. I also don't know why they're not just wearing their 95 jerseys. Generally, especially the Jags, little upset about it, but missed opportunity there by both teams. By the NFL.
Yeah.
By Nike. By anyone.
Everybody.
Yes.
I think, I can't say there are no throwbacks that are worse than the current ones because, there were those Denver weird brown things. There was that Eagles, sky blue and yellow
whatever
monstrosity.
The Packers wear.
Yeah. So there are bad throwbacks out there, but most of them are throwing back to a better uniform than the current version. Just go back. We can accept there were what we termed progress and development and improvement at the time were in fact mistakes. And we can just go back to what worked previously. Like the Vikings have effectively done that, right? They had those hideous Adrian Peterson era things and acknowledged that was a mistake. We erred, we went in a bad direction, and we've been trying to get back to those late 90s jerseys for a while now. Just go back to them. They were better. Use them again. Just dust off the plans.
Just do it.
It was Reebok or wherever back there. I'm sure they've got some templates you could steal and just run them again. Anyway.
That's my biggest note. I put it in all caps. Should have worn throwbacks.
What about David Tepper?
Well, let's talk about the game first, and we'll talk about your billionaire friend.
Okay. Cool.
The Carolina Panthers had just 4 net passing yards in the first half. Didn't get much better after that. Another rough game for Bryce Young, but at the same time, every time he made a good pass, it was DJ Chark probably dropping it or just, screwing it up.
Yeah.
DJ Chark had 3 straight plays where he had it was like a drop, one that hit the turf as he was going to the ground, and then one where he pushed off, got away with offensive pass interference, and didn't get his hands to the ball in time to catch it, basically. So that kind of summed things up for Carolina. Pass rush, once again, it wasn't that Bryce Young was under a ton of heat, but he got sacked, 6 times? It was a bunch.
Yeah.
Josh Allen, 3 sacks. Trayvon Walker had 2, one of them tracking down little Bryce Young in pursuit.
Bryce Young.
Jags defense did a really nice job. And once Travis Etienne broke off a really nice 62-yard touchdown, and once he got that, it was pretty much over for the Panthers.
Yeah. Josh Allen with a nice game. Bryce Young was under pressure 41% of the time, but he was sacked 6 out of 16 pressured dropbacks. Basically every time they got heat on him, they got a sack out of it. They did a really good job of not just finishing those plays, but making sure Bryce Young couldn't get out of there and ad-lib. He's a quarterback that's in that interesting zone of you're still athletic enough to make some plays, at the NFL level, but you're not really athletic enough to go full Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or, you don't have that overwhelming level of whether it's physicality, speed, combination of all of it that you can just do what you like back there, but you're just athletic enough to be able to make a bunch of good plays if you sort of figure out how to harness it. He's in the sort of Patrick Mahomes zone of athleticism. And yet, obviously, Mahomes has that mastered. He's incredible at it. And that's one of the reasons why he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Bryce Young right now just doesn't seem to have a feel for when he can deploy the athleticism, when he has to eat it and get rid of the ball and just accept a slightly negative play without turning it into a hugely negative play.
For the Jags, C.J. Beathard got the start, of course, in place of Trevor Lawrence. Played a solid game. His best throw, downfield 48-yard pass to Jamal Agnew, who eventually broke his leg and is now out for the season. Agnew had been that guy. When you look up target rate when he's on the field, it's Agnew's the leader every year if you take off the filters, because the Jags are always manufacturing touches for Jamal Agnew. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. He would have been a nice weapon, though, for the Jags down the stretch when they're getting just inconsistent play from their receivers in offensive line this year. Might be a tough loss for Jacksonville because they were, again, they've spent years manufacturing stuff for him, but in a game like this, flips the field for a 48-yarder. Agnew's always had that potential. End around, screens, downfield passes. Could be a tough loss for the Jags. Jacksonville will most likely have Trevor Lawrence back next week, again, facing the Titans with the AFC South on the line. Then David Tepper threw a drink at a fan.
You did.
Panthers owner. That was the biggest story coming out of this.
Yeah, there's a video out there of David Tepper just walking to the front of his luxury box and firing a drink at Jacksonville fans right in front of him and then storming back in peak.
I'm sure the fan deserved it.
Well, this is the thing.
I'm kidding.
So I do have a degree of sympathy for the idea that there is a level of provocation coming from fans that I'm okay with reacting to, right? I am Team Ron Artest / Eric Cantona. There are things that can be thrown at people verbally from a crowd that I think cross a line. And I think we've normalized the idea that you are safe just because you're part of the herd. To hell with that. If you say something that crosses the line, Eric Cantona should be absolutely within his rights to drop kick you in the face, right? I'm okay with that. So I need to see video. I need more evidence here, right? We have a very short clip that only captures Tepper launching a drink at a fan. Now, I have no idea whether that was completely unprovoked. And if it is, that's pretty bad from Tepper.
That's bad billionairing.
Yeah, very bad billionairing. That's Dan Schneider billionairing. In fact, it's worse than Dan Schneider billionairing. I never saw him do that. But there is also a world where more video evidence emerges, and that fan was hurling horrific things at David Tepper all game. And if that happened, there's a level of provocation to which I would say, good work, David. You do you. You prove to that man he's not safe there just because he's outside of your booth. You show him. So I need to see more video is what I'm saying here to be conclusive on either end. I'm not willing to condemn the man just because he threw a drink, because I think there are times where that's called for.
First, Twitter does a good job now of you finish your tweets and it's here's your top suggested tweets. That's how things go viral, right? One of the funniest responses I heard was when a billionaire throws a drink in my face and it shows Paul Pierce of the Celtics getting carried off the court and they're in the wheelchair and everything. That would be, that water in the face broke my knee, you know. Dislocated kneecap, I'm out.
Right. Mike Florio was talking about this. Was that's a very easy lawsuit to file, and a very rich guy at the other end of it to settle.
Maybe that was the intention. That's well done.
Yeah.
Invoke the water toss, and then for risk of derailing the podcast here, do you want to hear? As a former professional athlete, I've been on the inside, right? When people from the outside
of the abuse
are taunting.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you want to hear some of the taunts that I've dealt with through the years? In AAA with the Iowa Cubs, there was a man and his son, probably 9-10 years old, and they called me Big Goofy. And the father was very proud of teaching his 10-year-old to call me Big Goofy. So the 10-year-old was yelling this at me.
Right.
They would just go, Big Goofy! Big Goofy!
Now, I would stop short of beating up a child, regardless of the provocation.
I was never provoked.
Just to be clear.
I was never had the urge to go into the crowd.
But just to be clear,
but I chuckled.
When I'm aligning myself with Team Ron Artest and Eric Cantona, I would limit that to adults.
Yeah. I'm just going to say I think it's a hilarious thing that a wall separates the fans and the players. And the fans can just say whatever they want.
Yeah.
And I get it, but it's kind of weird.
But they say
it's if we were just walking on the streets, you probably wouldn't say that to me.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's we pretend this world that because there's a fence that separates you and me, you are safe, and that you can say whatever you want, and that the rules of the street, Steve, the rules of the street no longer apply. Yeah. If we were out alone on the streets, you would not be hurling that abuse at somebody, because there's a pretty high chance they would react and you would get smacked in the mouth. I'm just saying that level of decorum should still exist in a stadium, and it doesn't.
My computer may have frozen, which is going to throw a wrench in some of this.
It's also, by the way, it is entirely plausible that David Tepper is just that crazy and there was no provocation whatsoever. I mean, this is a man that allegedly, remember, after a game earlier this season, just walked out of the locker room screaming fuck. And reporters were like, oh, look, this David Tepper crazed with anger. And that was what led to Frank Reich being fired. You know what I mean? So he might just be that nuts and that petulant and that childish.
I have two more quick harassments that I received while I'm restarting my frozen computer.
What do you got?
In Quebec, played in Quebec, Canadian American League Finals. in 2000.
Were they hurling French at you?
So they had a really hot crowd, really good crowd up there. But they're it's a hockey town. But they loved their Quebec capitales. So we're playing in the finals there, and they all speak French, of course.
Yeah.
So one guy, it was like he didn't really know how to talk trash in English.
Oh, okay.
So he called me a cheap shot pitcher with his accent. He's like, "Yo, cheap shot pitcher," or something like that. It was his.
That's not great trash talk.
And I was like, that's kind of like you're a hockey fan. You just don't know how to trash talk. So he called me a cheap shot pitcher. And then there was a guy in Arizona, Reno, Nevada, real drunk guy. He thought I looked like Oates from Hall & Oates. So he just kept yelling Oates from the bullpen. And he'd just be drinking the whole time, while running around the stadium, just yelling Oates. And then he eventually got kicked out of the stadium.
Oh. That's not great trash talk either.
No. But I had to deal with all this stuff.
Big Goofy's pretty good, but the other one's not so much.
I can't believe he had his 10-year-old doing that.